Okay, in this video I'm going to talk about how I load orbital elements into CCDCiel and a couple of configuration settings in CCDCiel, and also how to set up the imaging program CCDCL to work with CCDCiel. So to start off with, some configuration settings for CCDCiel. If you go here to the configure part, first thing you want to do is come down to chart and coordinates and make sure that apparent coordinates is set. Next thing you want to do is come down to solar system and make sure topocentric is selected. This is very important for the Earth approaching objects. It could be off by a degree or more in position if this is not selected. This is set to geocentric. Another thing you want to set is here under Internet in the Orbital Elements tab. The default setting for the location of the comet orbital elements is correct. But since we're going to be talking about near-Earth objects, you need to use this URL. This is very important. The easiest way I found to get this URL is to go to the Minor Planet Center's website, come here to Data, and scroll down to this part where it says Elements for NEAs for current epoch today. This is updated daily. And this is the link that you want to list in CCDCiel. So right click on this, copy the link address, come back to CCDCiel and paste it in here. So this is going to download the near-Earth objects with their orbital elements for today's epoch. If you don't use this, then your positions could be off quite significantly. So that's the configuration settings. The next thing that I like to do is to load in the orbital elements, and to do that you can right click, go here, and the first thing I like to do is clear out the old data files. So if you come to data maintenance, you look here, I can see I have several data files that I've loaded. First thing I like to do before I start is to delete all that stuff. Just clear it out. Then come to the load MPC file, and now we can download those orbital elements for today's epoch. Here's that URL. Let's click on download. And now it says you want to compute the monthly data. So it processes the list, and now it says you're ready to use those orbital elements. The next thing we want to do is load in the orbital elements for the newly discovered asteroids. In the last video we talked about how to grab these orbital elements from the Minor Planet website and then modify them by adding their names at the end here so that CCDCiel could load them in. So this is the file we want to load in. So we click on Use a Local File, and we have to change this to All Files. And I have saved these here, and here's that file that we created in the first video. So we open that up and load it in, and we see that yes, there are 5 asteroids in that list. Click OK, so it loads them in and goes back and processes the elements and says we're now ready to use the orbital elements. So click on OK. So now we've loaded in the orbital elements for the near-Earth objects with known orbits, and we've loaded the orbital elements for objects that were newly discovered that we had to load in manually. So now let's load in the observation list that we created in the first video. Click on Observing List, and click on Load. Here's that list of objects that we decided to observe, and they're loaded in here, and you can see 3 of the objects are currently listed, and that's because we have a filter on that shows only the objects within the air mass limits now. So we're showing all the objects that are above 30 degrees or going through less than 2 air masses. You can change this. You can also change the display filter to transit settings. There's a lot of options in here that are described in the help file. What I typically do is load these in, click on Update the coordinates, and then sort them by this end time. That tells me the time when these objects go below 30 degrees altitude. And I can see this first object here, it's at 2:39 in the morning, so there aren't any objects low in the west that I need to observe quickly. And as time goes on, more objects will appear down here as they rise in the east. You can turn this off and see all the objects that we've created. Close out of that. Here are all these objects, and you can see most of these are over here in the eastern sky. In fact, there are none of them in the west right now. So as time goes on, sometimes I switch this to the starting time. I'll turn the filter back on, and this helps me pick up objects as they are rising in the east. It will show me the ones that have risen first, have gotten above 30 degrees. And I pick those because they're going to be up higher, typically, than ones that have just come up above 30 degrees. So the object here really is to observe these objects when they're highest in the sky. When I first start out in the evening, typically I try to catch the ones that are setting in the west before they get too low, and once I take care of those, then I concentrate on the ones that are closest to the meridian or highest in the sky. And then I catch the ones that are coming up in the east, trying to get them as high in the sky as possible before I image them. And that's typically how the workflow goes. So we'll close out of that for now. We have these 3 objects over here in the east that we want to observe. And we'll talk a little bit about how CCDCiel and CCDCL work together. They're both written by the same author. I think they're both great programs, and they work quite well. So if we go to the CCDCL program, we first need to connect some equipment here. I am not connected to my telescope, so this is really going to be just a demonstration. In another video, I will actually kind of walk through the process when I'm actually collecting data with my telescope. But for this purpose, I just want to talk about how these things work together and how to set them up. In CCDCL, you come in here to the devices setup, and choose your devices. Camera is of course mandatory. You can also set up a mount. Basically those are the two that you really need. If you have a filter wheel and a focuser, this will also interface with those. Camera, I'm just using an ASCOM simulator camera here. Filter wheel I'm not using, focuser and mount, they're all ASCOM simulator right now. So we'll leave that device set up as to the simulation, and we'll connect to them. And it now says that we're connected to the camera and the mount. And down here is a log of what has happened. This is always very helpful to check. You can set various parameters here: binning, exposure time. What I want to do is connect to the planetarium. This is the link between the planetarium, CCDCiel, and CCDCL. Now CCDCL can talk to the planetarium program. And basically, the way I come into CCDCL, come to my observing list, select my target, click on that and see what we're going for. It's an 18.5 magnitude object, so it's not too terribly faint. This will give me an idea of how much exposure time I want. Also, this hourly motion is a good indication of how fast this thing is moving, and that's going to determine also my exposure time. You can see that this is moving, well, 52 arc minutes per hour. That's pretty quick. So I'm going to have to go with fairly short exposure times, maybe 5 seconds. And then that's to minimize the trailing of the asteroid. 5 seconds might even be too long. Might have to go for 2 seconds. It's moving almost a degree an hour. We'll assume 5 seconds. And at 18th magnitude, I'm probably going to need, maybe 15 or 20 subs. I'll call it 15 subs at 5 seconds to get this object. So we'll come back to CCDCL, and what I do is click on New Target, and this is automatically populated with the name, the RA, and the deck. I click OK, and it's going to confirm that you want to move the telescope to this position. I'll click OK, and then if my telescope were connected, it would start slewing the telescope, stop at the correct position, take an image, do a plate solve, and then do a precision slew to correct for any error in the offset, and take another image and basically refine its position until it gets within a certain limit of where I want it to point. In this case, I believe I set it to about an arc minute. Since I'm not connected to the telescope, I won't do this because it won't ever find the right object, find the position. So I'll just hit cancel for now. But let's pretend that the telescope was slewed to the correct position. It's taken an image. It's done a plate solve. It's figured that I'm actually pointing, say, 5 arc minutes away from the true position I want. So it does another slew, recorrects, takes another image, does another plate solve, figures I'm now pointed maybe half an arc minute away from where I want it to, and it's done. Now I would come over here to this section, and I set the various parameters. This is where I'd say, okay, I want to take 5-second images, and I want to do 15 of them. And if I were live, this would be populated with the name of the object already. In this case, it's 2017 FT102. So we'll put in 2017 FT102. but this will automatically be here if I were live at the telescope. At this point, let's see, I've got the exposure time set. I want my binning to be at 3 by 3. I'm going to take 15 images, click on Start, and just let it go. And you can watch down here as the images are taken. You can adjust these parameters to show the display more clearly. This is a histogram stretching feature. Again, all of this will become hopefully more clear in the video of me using this live. After it's taken its 15th image, we can go to the next target. Come back to my observing list. Next target. This object is 18th magnitude, not moving nearly as fast, so I would probably choose 10-second exposure and maybe 10 of them. So we come back to CCDCiel, come back here, new target. Here's the name, the right ascension declination it's gotten from CCDCiel. Hit OK. Hit OK here. It would slew the telescope, take an image, do a plate solve, do a fine slew on the telescope if it needed to zero in better. Take another image, and then finally, usually in my situation, after one plate solve and one precision slew, it's within an arc minute, which is the tolerance that I've set. So then come here. This time we want to take 10-second exposures, and we only need to do about 10 of them. And again, the name would be automatically filled in here. 2017 AC5. So 2017 AC5 would automatically be there. Hit start, and it would take 10 images at 10 seconds, and you can see that scrolling through here. Go on to the next subject, the next target. You may want to go back to the first object now and take your second set of measurements. Remember, you have to submit at least 2 measurements per object per night. So now I would take my second set, come back to CCDCL, new target, hit OK, hit OK, telescope would slew to the new position, do a plate solve, and then do a precision slew to the final position. Come in here. This is when we wanted to do 5 seconds on because it's moving so quickly. 15 images, and this is object 2017 FT102. Click Start, and we get our second set of measurements. What I typically do here, and you'll see this again in the live demo, I typically write down the number of exposures. 15 at 5 seconds. So number of exposures, time, and I put an X for when I've taken the first set, and an X for when I've taken the second set. And in this case, the second object, we were doing 10 exposures at 10 seconds, and we've just taken 1 set. So we need to come back and do that. This really helps me keep track of where I am in my sequence and what exposures and counts I have done for each one. Because if you've got a list of 15 or 20 objects here, I quickly get confused as to how many exposures, what was the time, have I done 1 set, have I done my second set yet? Sometimes I do a third and a fourth set if I have the time. It all depends on what I'm going for in that evening. Anyway, that's the basic workflow. Let's see, were there anything I wanted to talk about in here? In the preferences on CCDCL, probably should mention there's not a lot of documentation on CCDCL. It's still in beta right now. And there are some bugs in it, I will warn you. But it works pretty well. Actually, it works very well. The problems I've run into are when it comes into automation and running some of the scripts. Those still are a little buggy. But the basic function works quite well. In here, this setting on what you want to name things can sometimes be helpful. I believe I have that checked as well. Information, you can put in your observer name, latitude, and longitude. This is really just stuff that gets saved in the FITS header. Preview, nothing really that needs to be set in here. The focus, nothing in here unless you're using your autofocuser. The astrometry setting, pretty much okay to leave this as the default. You will need to install the astrometry.net program locally. That is the plate solving routine that this program uses. And in my case, this is the location of the CYG Win folder for astrometry.net. And I basically downloaded all of the index files. It took a while, it takes up some disk space, but it works quite well when it comes to plate solving. So you'll need to get astrometry.net set up and running locally, which can be a little bit of a process, but it's not too bad. The instructions are pretty good. You may need to some of this stuff, the downsample perhaps. It can use this star locator. I've never used this. I imagine it works quite well, but astrometry.net is really, I think, the way to go here. Pixel size, this does need to be set up correctly in order for things to work. This slewing tab is used in the astrometry solving and repositioning of your telescope. Here you're saying that you want the center of the telescope to be pointing within 1 arc minute of your target. You can change this to maybe 2 or 3 depending on your field of view. I have it set to 1 arc minute in mine. This says how many times do you want me to retry in positioning the telescope, and this says take a 15-second exposure to do the plate solve. I believe I have mine set at 10 seconds, and I have binning set at 3. So these would be my settings for my telescope. This other stuff, it does interface with PhD, so you can control guiding from CCDCL, which works, and I do use that, although my exposure times are typically so short that I don't really need to do guided exposures. I never really go more than about 30 seconds. Most of them are around 10 seconds. And here is the link to CCDCiel. So you just need all these defaults, work pretty well. You do need to kind of come in here to slewing and get that set up right, and astrometry, and the file, and probably your information settings. So those are the configuration settings for CCDCL. Again, this is in beta, so there are some bugs in it. but it does work quite well for what I've described. So that's about it for setting up CART-to-CL and CCDCL, loading orbital elements into CCDCL, and the connection between CCDCL and CART-to-CL. I'm sorry, loading orbital elements into CART-to-CL, not CCDCL. I think that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching.